Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to our Emmy Contender series. My name is Yvonne Villarreal and I cover television. We're here today with Sharon Horgan, the co-creator and star of Catastrophe. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Are you in a grieving period? Does it feel like that yet?
Yeah, I am. Although this kind of thing has helped a little bit
Because you're still talking about it?
Yeah, because I'm still talking about it, so it still feels like it's in my life. Because it went out in the UK, and then we did all the press for that, and then it went out on Amazon. We were in New York talking about it a lot, and then and like having screenings and stuff like that has kind of helped because it still feels real. But I don't know. I think I'm just sort of delaying the inevitable period of feeling incredibly down.
Because what was it like after pulling? Like how
after
did you
pulling? Gosh, well,
were you just like?
No, because pulling was the first thing I ever made, so I just assumed that like life would be rosy after that, you know, because you finish making your show and you're like, oh well, I can do that again. That was easy, and then you realise that it's not easy at all to, you know, create something that you love with characters that you love playing and that people relate to and enjoy and stuff. So no, I didn't. I mean, I felt down. I felt a bit sad that it was, because it was cancelled as well, which is different.
It's,
you know,
because you don't get to have the closure.
But also there's a bit of anger, and anger is a kind of energy, and that sort of propels you. But with this, we decided ourselves, and we got to end it in exactly the way we wanted. And but yeah, I'll be grieving for a while, I think.
There was like I was young when I had like one of my favorite jobs, and I was like, and it had to come to an end because I had to go off to college. But I remember I like cried in bed for like 2-3 days. I would wake up like, I'm never gonna see these people again, and
I mean, I cried at various points along the shoot.
Yeah.
Like I cried at the table read even. I couldn't read that last little bit at the end when Rob and I are sitting on that rock. And I have to say to him, you know, you make me happy every day. And I was like, choke. But yeah, and then I cried for Rob's last scene, and I cried for our last scene together. And when I say cry, you know, I'm not hysterical.
Right.
But
it hits you.
Like, you know, a little well up. But I didn't cry for my own last scene. It was weird. It was kind of sort of like an anticlimactic kind of. I kind of expected like everyone to just hold a parade or something, and everyone just like, because my last scene was the last scene of the entire shoot, so everyone just wanted to go home, like back to their families or get a bit of rest. And I was like, guys.
What did you guys do on set for that? Like
nothing.
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 No clapping?
Nothing.
No cake?
You know, you get a bit of a clap and someone gives you some flowers. I sound incredibly ungrateful now, and I'm not. It was just, you know, it was a culmination of so many things and years and people and feelings, and then it's just over. I mean, I should just grow up. That's what I should do. Any
advice for the creators of Game of Thrones as they're going through it?
Yeah, they really need my advice. Just enjoy it. That's what I would say. Game of Thrones creators who are obviously listening to this.
What do you think Rob and Sharon, the characters, thought about the premiere episode? We saw that she was like, I gotta watch it by myself.
What?
What do you think the characters? Because in the final season.
Oh, of the Game of Thrones. I'm sorry.
You're like, what?
Oh, I've got to watch it on my own like a pervert. I'd say, you know what? I was so tired the other night. I'm so jet lagged that I put it on to watch the premiere and I fell asleep. So I'm going to watch it tonight, I hope. So I don't know. I'd say she'd be thrilled. I mean, there was lots of, you know, there was lots going on before I fell asleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, she would have felt like a pervert because the last thing I saw before I fell asleep was a foursome. So watching that on your own.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Did you always have 4 seasons in mind?
No, I think we literally didn't have anything in mind because we were surprised that it even went from the page to a pilot. So no, not at all. I mean, by the time we were making the second season, we were still a bit bemused, you know, that we were getting to have another go at it. I think by season 3, we were kind of like, oh no, we know what we're doing now. And then, yeah, season 4 was kind of harder because, you know, even though they're these short little seasons, we write them all ourselves, and you know, you're constantly trying to come up with story that feels like fresh and interesting for people viewing it, but also like fresh and interesting for you writing it, because you want to feel buzzed by what you're doing, and or at least ways feel like you're saying something new or something old that's being said in a new way. So it was kind of harder. So in a way, maybe it was good. It was good to finish it up in 4. Like maybe we would have been scrabbling around for story a little bit more. But yeah, no, there was no set amount of seasons in mind ever.
Did you have like when did you guys come to an idea of what you wanted that ending to be?
The absolute ending or the end episode?
The end episode.
Oh, the end episode. Well, it was,
or the absolute ending, like.
Well, we had the image of them in the sea for ages. I mean, before we started writing the first episode of the last season, we knew we wanted them to end up in the sea. And it wasn't too tricky to find a route to get there. I think what was tricky was getting ourselves to that last episode where we felt like we'd built up their story enough so that you kind of believed all the terrible things that happened in that final episode. And you believe, you know, when he says those awful things to her, you understand it, you get it. It's been like a build-up, like a pressure cooker of emotions and difficulties. And so we wanted both their jobs to be, in a bad sort of place, up in the air, and, you know that they still and always probably would have financial kind of issues, and then when we decided we wanted to say goodbye to Carrie and to her character Mia in the final episode, we knew that was going to be like added to the mix of everything he's going through and why it sort of explodes and why the whole thing kind of almost goes so horribly wrong. So it was a bunch of things together, and it's weird because, you know, you have an idea, but those ideas kind of feed other ones, and then the whole thing just kind of ends up, you know, being this fully formed thing. You're like always surprised that you got there, like always surprised that story is almost, you know, I hate saying organic because it's annoying when you hear a writer say that, but it is, and it sort of grows and develops and feeds other storylines and other characters. And so I think whether we made those decisions on purpose or whether they were accidental, it's sort of, I'm glad they happened.
Let's talk about that scene where he's telling her the most hurtful things that, like, there has to be a bit of truth in that, like the way he knows what to say, that he knows it's going to hurt her to her core.
Yeah.
And talk about wanting to show that because it happens.
Yeah.
I'm not married, but I was trying to imagine, how would I react to that? Like, could I move on knowing he feels this way in some form? Like, I know he's going through stuff or whatever, but to know on a deep level, there's truth in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the worst. It's the worst thing he could have said to her at that point. And when we're writing it, we're very we get quite emotionally caught up in it because we're kind of like, oh God, I can't do that to her. But I think at that point,
was there a version where he said even worse things?
You know what, there probably was, and there was probably a version that was too tame. So I think we'd sort of built up across the series that she was the kind of person who didn't really care what people thought. That there's an episode, I think, in season 3 where she says, you know, you're not a puppy. Not everyone has to like you, and I've earned the right to have people not like me. I'm very happy that people don't like me. And he goes, yeah, no shit. But and I think we'd sort of built up over the series as well that he did take a lot of. She's you know, she's not gentle with him, you know, and she's a great character, but she's also a difficult character, and I think by the time we get to that point in the last season when he says that thing, I think I hope that an audience would kind of agree with him in a way, you know, that or at least ways that you could see both sides.
From. Yeah.
And also he was allowed to say all those things because his mother had just died, and his dad is bright yellow, and you know,
that was such a great moment.
And it was so funny because any really sad moment we knew was going to be fine because we had a guy who looks like a minion in the background.
Yes.
So we knew that the audience would allow that, him to say that, and we knew that at that point she probably needed that said to her, you know, because it's completely reasonable to be sad that your holiday's been interrupted, and not just from a completely selfish point of view, but you know, you're a mother and your kids need to go to the beach, and you know, it's been a stressful year and all that. So, but she was doing it in such a cack-handed, terrible way. But yeah, I remember when we were doing that scene, being really upset. To be told that I don't like you, because she needs him so badly.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, you know, her dad is dead and her brother lives in Spain and her mom has a new fella, and she's not a super sociable person.
Yeah.
She's got like, you know, a couple of friends, and and those things kind of drift, don't they? And you get to just her and Robert, one person really, and despite it being sort of fractious and terrible and difficult, it's also, you know, a proper love affair. And so having that person say, I don't like you, it's pretty tough. But you know, we enjoyed it.
Well, because it goes to the heart of what this show has always been about. Like, it could have easily been about these two people and what it's like to be a parent, and just focus on them navigating being parents, but it's more about this relationship and how it like evolves because of that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of think that's more interesting, and also I think there are lots of shows, comedies that do that and do that really well. But we never wanted it to be about how they parent. We wanted it to be, although that, you know, creeps in a little, and sometimes it's funny and extra jokes. But really, it's about how their relationship survives them being parents, and so we get to focus on them and the, like, you know, the heart of it, like the beating heart of it, and that was always just much more interesting to Rob and I. It's all we wanted to write about, really. So and we figured that the kind of people who would watch our show, that's what they want as well.
That's what they crave, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and did you know that you wanted it to end with them in America, like that final thing? Because this is, Rob is a guy that left America and started a life in the UK, and so you're ending back on his home turf.
Well, we always at some point wanted her to be out of her element, you know, and in a way that kind of worked with that, you know, ending it in the sea, that they're in a different element, you know, and in fact it was sort of like something I'd wanted to do for a long time, and every time we'd write a season I was like, let's go to America, and there was never any budget.
Like, no, not right now.
And but I kind of always wanted to sort of flip it, you know, and see her in that situation of his, or that he had been in for the past 4 seasons. But yeah, it was something we'd sort of always wanted to do, and I think, and like, I'm so happy we got to do it that way, because I think apart from sort of turning everything on its head and having this different environment, it also was a wonderful way to say goodbye to Mia, and to deal with that, and sort of really flesh it out and make it part of the episode. I mean, it kind of drives everything in that episode, and not just sort of deal with it in a small way. Do you know what I mean? We sort of, when we started writing it, we had an idea at one point he was going to find out in Ep 3, because we weren't sure, like, and the audience watching, everyone knows Carrie, and
Right.
everyone knows that she's sadly left us, and
Yeah.
and so we were like, how can we hold on to that information? But then it just sort of, you know, it's like I was saying earlier, it just sort of all drove towards that final episode, and you know, I was kind of really happy that happened, because it felt like we got to say goodbye to her in a proper way, you know.
Can we address saying goodbye to her? Because, I mean, the show had a little more political elements to it. She says some interesting things that Breitbart picked up.
Yes. Yeah, we were so just thrilled with that.
Can I read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. There's a little bit more political references in season 4. And there's a line where your character says, and this is where they're sitting at the beach, I believe, right? It's weird, you know, when you're here, you don't feel like you're in a white nationalist ethno-state run by a fake theocratic dictator. You just feel like you're on a pretty beach. You had to have known this would be like, did you not expect the reaction that it got?
Oh, no. I mean, we hoped it would get that kind of reaction. And, I mean, we've never been overtly political, because it's not that kind of show, but it's always found a way in there, you know, because it affects...
How can it not? Yeah.
It affects everyone's everyday lives, and choices they make, and how they feel about the future, and, you know, financially it affects them. And so we always wanted it to be there in a sort of underlying way. But I guess with this episode...
Because I can't even say what is written in the letter by Mia.
Oh, you can't.
Because there's a little bit of curse words.
Oh, yeah.
But,
you could just say bleep. Well,
yeah, there's a funny line. Maybe you can say it. I can't. That she has Mia has a letter that she leaves behind.
Well, we wanted to.
And it makes reference to Mike Pence.
Yeah, we wanted to really. We wanted it to be more than just a eulogy, you know. We wanted it to be more than just saying the kind of person she was. And I think, like, thank God in the season before, we'd got to show this other side to her character. So the audience knew that she wasn't just this, you know, mother-in-law monster. They knew that she'd had a very, you know, difficult life, that she actually really cared, and she even cared about Sharon. And so we felt like with her being this, and being Carrie, because obviously you're going to care about anything, any character that Carrie plays. But so we didn't want it just to be, she was a great mom and she did these things. We thought we wanted to hear her. And so Rob and his sister, they find these sort of messages that she sent, because she's been donating money through her eBay sales. She's always been addicted to buying trinkets and whatnot on eBay. And so she talks about this charity she donates the money to, where these kids have these sort of twisted spines. I can't remember exactly how she says it, but she's basically saying someone's got to do it, you know, because no one gives a rat's bumhole about disabled kids in the States. And then she suggests that Mike Pence might spend his Sundays throwing them out of windows. And then she calls him that microwaved apple beep, looking beep, mother beep.
Yes, very, very good.
Thank you.
You knew just where. We've seen the growth of Sharon, the character, as she becomes a wife, as she becomes a mother. We see what it does for her, like how she changes because of it. How did marriage and being a parent change you?
Well, I mean,
does it mirror? Yeah.
Completely and irrevocably.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because you change over time anyway. I've been a mum for 15 and a half years, so I'm definitely a different person to the one I was 15 and a half years ago. I was awful. I'm slightly less awful now. Yeah, I mean, it changed everything. And being married as well. I mean, of course it does. It's like you're like a team. You're just kind of, you're a gang. And I mean, I certainly don't love spending time without them, or on my
Most
own
of the
even.
time.
I'm like, whenever I'm here on my own, I'm like, where's the... But no, I mean, it changed my work ethic. It changed my outlook on life. It changed, it's made me a nervous wreck. I used to just sort of float along, and now everything makes me anxious. I want the world to be a better place for them. I probably would have been a lot more kind of nihilistic when I was younger. I think and hope it's made me a better person, and I think maybe it's made me a better writer as well, I hope.
My mom says it's made her like more anxious.
Oh,
like
God,
if
yeah.
we don't respond to a text, she thinks we've been like in a car accident or something.
Oh, I mean, I if I'm anywhere crowded and my child is with me, and then, I turn around and they're not with me, I don't just go, where's my kid?
No.
I go, where's my child? I go insane. I go from 0 to 100 like that, and there's nothing I can do about that. It's insane and horrible to watch. But yeah, it's just a constant low-level anxiety.
We're going to take some questions from fans, if you don't mind.
Okay.
What are you going to miss most about the show?
I think I'm going to miss writing with Rob most. Yeah. We had it was difficult, and, it had its challenges, but it was just, I think, when we were happiest, because you are just sitting together in a room making each other laugh, and the possibilities are endless. And whereas everything else beyond that is kind of about, no, you can't do that because, there's no budget for that, or you have to scale that back, or you have to take that character out. Whereas when you're writing, it's just, you just go for it,
And it all started because he reached out to you on Twitter.
Yeah.
Which I have to ask, because right now with the WGA and the agencies stuff, what are your thoughts on that? But also, we're in a period right now where a lot of showrunners are using Twitter to find writers right now.
Yeah. I mean, they should as well. What do I think about it? I completely stand with the WGA, and I think, thank God it's happening, because something had to change, and it's, like the tail wagging the dog, and it's obnoxious greed on a mass scale. So that's not good. Writers are kind of creators of everything. Without the writers, there are no parts for actors, and there is no shows to put together production teams for, and there's much less work for agents to do, and I think they're given short shrift, and they always have been, here and in the UK. And I think anything that changes that and just gives them a bit more power and reflects the fact that it wouldn't exist were they not there. The industry as a whole. It's a very creative place as well, where people can have immediate access to people, and it constantly happens all the time. Writers reach out, or I reach out to writers, or even just, someone is at the beginning of making a show and they want to hear about a director I work with, or, and it doesn't seem like anyone's kind of after anything. They you're passing on advice, and you're kind of helping each other out, and it's kind of the way it should be. Right.
Another question is, what is the greatest difference between writing and acting on the show?
Oh, well, the greatest difference.
Do you have a preference?
Well, I prefer the writing, I think, because I'm not great at being sort of poked. And, so, like, I can sit in the chair in the morning, get my makeup done, and that's fine, because you can kind of have a bit of a snooze and go over your line. But the rest of the day, someone's literally poking you with things. And so, and it's fun, and it's great, and it's a relief sometimes to be someone else, like to play someone else. That's just wonderful, just to get away from yourself for a while. But yeah, I mean, it's weird because Rob and I write right up until the wire, there's rarely ever any time to spare. So we kind of oftentimes just find ourselves standing on set going, oh, this now. Like we haven't spent the time thinking about it or prepping it, and that's the only thing that's a bit of a challenge, I think. It would be nice to have a bit more time to sort of, I don't know, just think about what you're doing, you know.
The luxury of that,
yeah.
How, I mean, would you say this is the show that most pulled from your own life, and what was that like?
I don't know if it's most, because I've kind of pulled from it a bit. I mean, pulling was, well, Dennis Kelly and my lives in our 20s. That's what we wrote about. And I mean, I guess divorce less so, although, you know, there was a lot of, sorry, just spat all the way across the table. Maybe you didn't pick it up, but it was a goodie. There's definitely elements of, you know, when you've been unhappy in your marriage, even if you're not thinking about getting a divorce, you know, there's stuff and stories in there that are from mine. But and Motherland is the same to a certain extent. So I don't know. I mean, it's like.
Does it get easier?
Yes. Yeah, because the characters become
their own people.
Yeah, they really do, and they kind of give you story. Like the more you get to know your characters, and you know, not just Rob and Sharon, but the supporting characters as well, the more they kind of give you story, because their lives kind of grow within it. You know?
Well, we're gonna end things with a lightning round.
Okay.
Not to freak you out.
No.
Last show you binge watched?
Oh, Russian Doll.
Really good.
Yeah, I loved it.
Who is going to win Game of Thrones?
God, I mean,
What's your pick?
Tyrion.
Okay, that's a good pick. What classic TV show would you have loved to be on? To have been on?
Oh, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay. What's the worst job you've ever had? And it doesn't have to be acting.
I've had so many terrible jobs, but I stayed in an office job for 6.5 years. So I think that was the most terrible just because of the length of time. But, you know, I sort of was a cleaner, a chambermaid, a waitress, a shop assistant.
Is the office job the one with the story about excrement?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Wow, you really know your...
Because that was the catalyst, right? For you to
for leaving. Yeah. That's a very intriguing story.
I was
just
like
kind of
shocked by
into that. Yeah.
She was asked to clean.
Yes,
feces.
I was.
I would have said no.
Outside the front of my office block. Well, I sort of said yes, and then I went outside and went no.
No, can't do this.
Yeah, and then I sort of
let me draft my resignation letter.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks for having me.
And for all you, thanks for tuning in. If you want to see more of our Emmy chats, head over to latimes.com.